Hi, and welcome to Two CPAs and the Mic, the podcast where we talk tax, finance, and all things related to business. Whether you're a business owner, working professional, or someone who wants to start a career in accounting, this is the podcast for you. Hosted by CCK Strategies partners Jeff Frable and Sara Mays, we dive into relevant business and tax matters with working professionals to make these topics less intimidating, relatable, and dare we say fun? Let's get down to business.
Welcome to this week's episode of Two CPAs and the Mic. As always, we are thrilled that you're joining us this week. We are here to cover relevant business and tax topics, doing it with straight talk, practical information, but without all the jargon and stuffiness that normally is associated with our profession. In other words, we're here to have a good time, good vibes, tasty waves, cool buzz, all that kind of stuff from Jeff Spicoli. You're not going to hear that on any other.
You went there.
You're not going to hear that on any other CPA podcast. I promise you. If you are, Sara, I have not even introduced you yet. So, all right.
I wanted everybody to know I was here. This is going to be a good one.
Sara's in the house. All right. If you are still with us today, we are here to.
You haven't hung up. You haven't turned us off.
All right. Entrepreneurial business owner.
Yes.
Individual in the profession, in any business profession. Today, if you are lacing up your shoes to take a walk or go on a run, we're going to be talking about the unexpected wow. In other words, how do you take small moments and drive big loyalty in business? Some of the things we're going to be talking about. Is hospitality really a strategy or is it a personality trait? Is there a competitive advantage to an emotional connection? When dealing with small intentional moments, is that better than big expensive gestures? How does all this apply to every other industry except or in addition to hospitality? And is it really true that people don't remember transactions? They remember how you make them feel? These are the topics we're tackling today, and we're doing it with the normal rowdy bunch. You've already heard them. Sara Mays, what's up?
What's up, Frable? How are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic, and we're going to get into that in our banter section.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead. Jeez.
Christy Porter, what's going on, girl?
Glad to be here.
He is sticking to the script.
I know, I'm really glad.
Okay. Well, this always has
I'm getting ganged up on today.
This always has the potential to go completely off the rails and go for 2 hours. So I think there's people that have things to do today. I don't know, but that's what I'm thinking.
Sounds like it. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Banter section. Life updates.
Yes.
Sara.
You go first.
Lincoln.
You go first, Frable.
Oh, okay. So we all know the grandchild was born.
Yes.
Oliver Allen. He goes by Ollie. So the big development is he has gained his birth weight back, which is
Riley
really cool.
Kicking it.
She is kicking
machine.
it like a mom,
Yes.
and her husband Blaine is kicking it like a dad. But here's what really happened. I had to say goodbye to Oliver last Sunday morning, and I bawled like a baby. I just was so connected. That little tyke, I mean, he has grabbed my heart, and we are ready for this journey of life between Gramps and grandson. So that's what's going on with me.
Is that what you're going to be, Gramps? We haven't talked about that.
I think it's Gramps and Graham.
I love that.
It's kind of an homage back to the real days of grandma and grandpa. So we think it's going to be Gramps and Graham. So
I like it.
What about a Lincoln update?
I get to leave tomorrow to go pick up my daughter and baby. We're going to fly them home. And then Wyatt, my son-in-law, and his dad are driving home Friday and Saturday. So they'll be back in the state of Oklahoma all together on Saturday. But then I get to see my baby tomorrow. So, my awesome. Grandbaby. I can't say my baby. My grandbaby.
Yes. So you get to see your grandbaby tomorrow.
Yes.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I know. I leave in less than 24 hours.
KP, you got some stuff going on.
We have a lot going on. My oldest is graduating college in the next week, and their wonderful lacrosse team is making it. They're getting ready to play their first game of conference play, and we are just praying with anticipation that they're going to make it to the NCAA tournament.
They're going to do it.
And they're just awesome. They have an awesome team. And I will tell you guys, you'll get it. This amazing group of young women have no idea the lessons they're learning of playing as a team and loving boldly. That's their phrase this year, love boldly.
Nice.
But they're so cohesive, and just the lessons they're learning and what that's going to do for them in their future is they're just setting the pace.
So cool.
Awesome to watch.
Wow. Christy went really serious there, really deep. Well, shout out.
Let's stick to script. Let's go.
shout out to Haley Porter. Kick it.
Yes.
Addison, do well in the conference tournament and bring home a big trophy.
They're going to make it.
Don't forget finals.
Well, I've got one other life update. So I'm in St. Louis. I'm on teams today, but we are in St. Louis. My wife has two teams, intermediate teams that's 4th, 5th, and 6th grade in the World Robotics Championship Tournament in St. Louis, which is a big, big deal. It's amazing seeing all these kids and what they're doing in robotics. You talk about learning life lessons, Christy. These kids. Yeah. So one of the teams went the other night and practiced they have to team up randomly. They get randomly teamed up with these other teams to compete together for a score. They went and practiced with a Vietnamese team. I don't even know if they could communicate with language. It was like they had a video it was just really, really cool. But so I got a funny story though.
Okay.
We all know how Sherry gives me a hard time about this podcast. So the other night we went out to dinner with the director of the robotics program in our school district. Young guy, 29 years old, just sharp as a tack and just really a great guy. So he starts telling us this story about how in his senior year in high school, he was like the state president of the FLCCA. It's that organization that does the home ec and all that kind of stuff, right? So he starts telling us the story about how they trained him to go across the state and to do these presentations. And he used the word etiquette.
Oh,
and I just got this huge smile on my face. I looked over at Sherry and she goes, "Go ahead and tell him." And I said, "We just did this podcast episode on etiquette, blah, blah, blah." And it was so hilarious. But he told me the main thing, the number one thing they taught them was what? What did we learn last week? The handshake. The handshake. Yeah. So go back. If you have any questions about etiquette, go back to last week's episode and listen about etiquette. But we're not here today to talk about etiquette. No. We're here to talk about something completely different, but equally as interesting and beneficial in your business and professional life. Ladies, have you ever watched The Bear?
I have watched a few episodes, but not like
just
the whole
a couple.
Thing.
Yeah, a couple.
I haven't binged it.
How did you only watch a couple episodes of The Bear and not get sucked into it?
You don't have to pay. You don't have to defend your choices.
I guess it's a guy thing.
You have to defend your
Must
choices.
be a guy thing.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about hospitality and service today, and it's based upon a book that is inspired the TV show The Bear, and how we can go above and beyond to create these client relationships. Now, let me give you an example of how I experienced this just the other day. So we're in our shout out to the downtown Hyatt Hotel in St. Louis, Missouri. We had a 1-night reservation and then a 3-night reservation. And so we get into our room and it's got a quarter arch view. It was nice. We saw the Mississippi River, but it was a corner room and it was kind of cut off, small. You've ever been in one of those?
Yeah.
So my wife says, if maybe we could change the room or something if you want. I said, yeah. So I go downstairs and I talk to Esteban. And I said, Esteban, I'd like to switch rooms. I don't know. I want to treat my wife special. She works so hard. Esteban had the tattoo love on his wrist. So I know he knew where I was coming from. And he's a young guy. And I said, I'm sure you're sold out and it'd be nice if we could move right now. But I know, he goes, well, let me check. So he starts typing away. He goes, I could do this for like $20 more a night, or And he goes, are you a rewards member? And I said, no. He goes, well, if you were, we could discount that a little bit. And all I need is an email address. And I said, okay. And so he says, you got a full arch view and you're 2 floors higher. And I said, okay. So I get my wife, we're moving all our stuff. We're walking down the hallway and it looks just like the hallway that we have just been in with the small room. We get to the end of the hallway and it looks like the same door that we were using. And my wife goes, there's no way this room is different. I said, well, let me go in. I walk in and 2 walls of windows, full arch view.
Woo.
And I said, I finally won. I tried to do something nice and it worked out. So what did I do? I went downstairs. I found Esteban's supervisor. I said, that dude made my trip. And every time now we see Esteban, we give him 2 thumbs up and a big smile. But he created an experience for me that he had no idea he was creating. And that's what we're going to be talking about. So the Bear talks about restaurants, and basically the book takes it to all other kinds of industries. And I think we have our own residential expert in the house today to talk about this.
Yay.
Our guest today is Russ Knight, and Russ Knight is the owner of a Christian Brothers Automotive franchise in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Russ he's not only a great businessman and great at what he does, but he's my friend and he's just a really good guy. Russ, welcome to the podcast today.
Thanks. I tell people all that stuff all the time, but they don't want to listen.
Nice.
I'm not sure they listen to us either, but Russ, we've had some really great talks about this topic. And I said one day, hey, let's get on the podcast because this is stuff that every business owner and everybody in the industry needs to hear and needs to implement. So before we get into all the nitty gritty and the discussion about unreasonable hospitality, why don't you just kind of take us through who you are, quick personal angle, your journey into the Christian Brothers Automotive world, and what made you decide that Christian Brothers Automotive was the place for you to be?
You bet. So I've been a sales knucklehead working for other people for years. And I was working for a company and my good friend Tommy came to me and said, hey, man, I want you to take a look at this. And he had just committed to be a franchisee a couple of years prior. And that was pretty important for me to have somebody who knew me to come alongside and say, hey, this is a good fit for you. You should take a look. It's about customer service. It's about serving people, serving your team, and marketing, going out, talking to people. And all those are your strengths. And so you should consider this. So that was the push that I needed as a sales guy working for other people to go out on, quote, on my own. There's a lot of things that are different, I think, about being a franchisee versus a, quote, entrepreneur doing it on your own. But I have to follow the plan and stick to the plan. But there's a lot of flexibility even within that to go above and beyond.
So you were not a car guy when you got into this, you were a sales guy, right?
Absolutely. So just somebody who has relationships with people. And I've been really trying to be a servant and try to know a lot of folks and to be a connector. That's really part of my identity, is to be able to put good people together, not for my benefit, but for theirs. And so when I get to do that, that's just what makes my heart happy. So to be the introducer, I've been a part of a job search ministry for a long time here in Tulsa called ojttulsa.org. But the idea is to introduce people. And so as we're talking about this, we're talking about a book called Unreasonable Hospitality. The author is Will Guidara, and it's a bright yellow cover. You'll find it a lot of places. A lot of your listeners have probably already read it. It's been featured in a lot of places. And a compelling story. So just the stories they tell in it.
So as we kind of transition to that, Russ, and get into some of this meat, can you give us, for those of our listeners that haven't listened to it, and to kind of set the stage for the discussion that we're going to have, can you give us just a real quick overview of the book, Unreasonable Hospitality, kind of how it it starts with fine dining and hospitality, but it goes way beyond that. Can you give us a high level overview?
You bet. So it's talking, yeah. Will was the front of house for a high-end restaurant in New York City. The restaurant was called 11 Madison Park. I don't even know if it's still there, but it's 3-star Michelin restaurant, the kind of place that I probably would never darken the doorstep just because it's so fancy and I wouldn't appreciate it. I wouldn't understand. And so we heard about this. I ordered several copies for my team. We have about 5 people in the front of our auto shop, and then thought, okay, I'll assign it to them and then ask, okay, on Tuesday, let's talk about chapters 1 and 2. Well, to a person, they all tore through it just because the stories were compelling, because he's talking about serving people and stories that really everyone could relate to, even if they don't have a lot of experience with super fancy restaurants. But then it was also about delegating and about how to implement this idea of going above and beyond at every stage of your engagement with your customer client, whichever it is. And so at one point, they converted their reservation office, which was just a small space in the restaurant where they would call and secure and confirm reservations. They converted that into a little craft room so they could respond when somebody said something. And they tell a story about how they had there was a kid, part of a party that was there, and that mentioned that they were trying to get to Build-A-Bear or something like that, and they didn't get to. So they overheard that and they figured out a way, and they went to the craft room and they sewed a little bear out of cloth napkins from the restaurant. And just those kinds of things, to just listen, pay a little bit more attention, and respond.
Russ, do you remember the hot dog story that they tell? Why don't you tell that one? Because that is another really cool story that's really pretty simple.
Yeah, I felt like I was giving away one of their really anchor moments that define the book and the story. And so they converted it to Chicago-style pizza in the TV show The Bear that's on Hulu. But the idea was that there was a group of people who had come to New York that were, I guess, what you'd call foodies, and they just made reservations at all these super high-end restaurants for each evening. And so they would cycle around to different restaurants. Well, this last restaurant, they brought their suitcases. So they were going to leave the restaurant and go to the airport. And they overheard the folks talking just about their whole trip and said, of all the things in New York we didn't experience, we never got a street hot dog. Well, their people were listening, overheard them, sent a runner, went and got a street hot dog. And he references it and calls it a dirty water dog, which I thought was funny. It was like a slang term. But they brought it back to the back, zhuzhed it up, and plated it, presented it to them and said, we didn't want you to leave New York without having experienced a street hot dog. And just that care and attention. And so the reason it was such a big deal was that guest, that party, responded so significantly to that moment. And the lesson was, people don't care about the power steering flush or whatever at the auto repair shop. They care about the fact that we paid attention and listened. When somebody mentioned they were going on a road trip and we ran next their windshield, or we recognized that they had a back problem and we vacuumed their car, to just pay attention a little bit and go a little above and beyond. And so it's not at a restaurant, they spend years perfecting these amazing dishes. And here they got the best response from a simple hot dog. And so the reminder is, people don't care about your power steering flush or your whatever. They care about the fact that you paid attention to them and went a little bit above and beyond.
So my guess, Russ, is that when they presented this hot dog, they also charged them $100 for it, right? Or when you Rain-X the windshield, you upcharge them, right?
Absolutely not. Great question. And I know you're setting me up for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a softball.
It's not about,
Good job, Jen.
it's not even, so there is a belief and a school of thought that says if you do something for free and you don't tell the customer about it, it's a waste. In my business, it's a tire rotation. People come in and they expect you to do free tire rotation, whatever. A tire shop wants to do that for free because then they can inspect your tires and sell you tires. We don't sell tires at our shop. And so it's not something that we necessarily want to do for free. We want to serve people at a high level. But when we rain-X a windshield or vacuum the car, it's something that we may very well not even mention and to just surprise the customer. So we want to look for ways and are consistently looking for ways to go above and beyond, not as a matter of here's a laundry list of things that we can do, but as a mindset to say the whole team is oriented to pay attention to each guest and to say, how can we go above and beyond with this person?
So I want to kind of take a step back real quick and ask you a logistical question. This was not something that you discovered when you started up the franchise, correct?
Correct.
Okay. How long were you in business before you read this book? And how long did it take you to go, hey, this could really work in our industry? And then how did you implement that? I know it takes time for something like that, for a mindset to change, but kind of how long did it take for that mindset to change with your teammates?
I think the reason it resonated was because I think like a lot of business owners and folks in my position are looking at their business and always evaluating and saying, how can we go above and beyond? How can we do this better? And we saw it just articulated so well with Will's book and the ability to tell stories from his context and for us to turn it around and say, oh my gosh, there's so many things in our business, so many places in the customer experience that we could add that above and beyondness. When I first joined the brand, one of the newish things that they were really trying to push and encourage every franchisee to deliver was when we're finished servicing the vehicle and they're coming to pick up their vehicle, that we would pull the vehicle to the front door and not make the customer go out to the lot and find their vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
We're certainly not 100% with that, but when we had tried to do that over the years. Read Unreasonable Hospitality a couple of years ago, so at about year 9 in my life cycle with the brand, and really at that point said, okay, this is such a good idea that we need to make sure that we're doing this with every vehicle, that it's just part of who we are, that we know it's not right. It doesn't feel right when a customer is leaving and they're having to take their keys and walk out to the lot and find their car. That's not okay. It really needs to be a handoff moment of, hey, thanks for coming in. Thanks for trusting us with your vehicle. And like finishing our finish. I don't know what that's from. That's a quote from somebody else about just making sure that you're putting the cherry on top, that you're looking for ways. And so this conversation between Russ and Jeff began where I felt like Jeff has been a customer over the years, has seen our business from the other side, from the customer side. And here I am as a customer with CCK. So I can give the same perspective, but to say, wouldn't it be interesting for both of us who have a lens looking at our own businesses for this to say, how can we look at another person's business and have a conversation to say, here's what I see. Here's ways that I think you could go above and beyond and deliver that unreasonable hospitality in these ways. So I originally thought that this would be kind of almost a laundry list of items or tasks that we could do and that I could give to my team and say, hey, here's the list of things but it's more about a mindset shift of the ability to say, I'm just paying better attention. I'm listening better.
Russ, it's almost like you looked at our outline or something, because you're transitioning this so well. And as we go into more of these details, I think it's important to kind of define a couple terms. Number one, that service is really more of a technical term. It's what you do. It's how you take care of somebody. The hospitality, when we refer to hospitality, we're even in the book, it's more of how you make somebody feel. And so we've heard that the example over and over again of how you go to Disney World and you can't explain it. You just feel a certain way. You don't mind shelling out the money, standing in lines just because of how you feel. It's how I felt earlier this week when I experienced what I did. I'm like, I'm ready to go to Hyatt's all the time now because of what they did for me. So that's kind of the technical part of it. But your comment about the laundry list, I kind of want to get into that. And what you're talking about is personalization versus standardization. And so what I want to ask is, does everybody get an experience? I mean, you may pull the car up and there's probably some things that you're doing that nobody else does and people kind of take for granted. But does everybody get an experience, or is it, and you'll understand this question, is it a Holy Spirit moment where you just feel a nudge and it's like, I heard that and I'm going to do it? How does that work for you and your team?
I think it's, as you said, it's certainly, it's not every person. So somebody comes in and they're skeptical of auto repair. They're used to being screwed. They're used to being taken advantage of, or being told that everything is urgent and has to be done right now. And we talk about it a lot among our team about, we don't want to do that. We don't want anybody to feel that. What I say, and my team would parrot and say, gosh, Russ says this all the time. I'd much rather somebody doesn't spend any money with us than walking away feeling like we twisted their arm and pressed them into something they weren't quite ready to do. So the knock on our brand, on Christian Brothers Automotive, I think sometimes is people say, oh, they're expensive. I don't believe that. I pay close attention to our pricing and check it against dealers and other reputable independent shops. And I make sure that we are competitive. But because that we go above and beyond and deliver an amazing experience and a great warranty and all those things, I think people see us as, they assume that we're expensive, or they're comparing against, oh man, I got my brakes done 10 years ago and I remember the cost of that. And it's a different world now. And so I think it's a matter of making sure, like you said, it's certainly a mindset of the team buying in and recognizing it's not just that we're going to check these boxes in our process.
Mm-hmm.
It's that we're going to pay attention and listen and respond when we see that opportunity, and that the team has the freedom to respond, to say, hey, I want to go above and beyond. We had a technician years ago. We had a customer who's a doctor, and he had spent a lot of money on old Trans Am that he was restoring. And so the technician decided, hey, we want to surprise him and go above and beyond. And so he painted the metal intake, the part on top of the engine, to the color that it was painted from the factory.
Wow.
And it was something we'd never painted anything in my shop before. And I thought, okay, great, this is neat. And we thought it was going to be a really neat moment when we got to present it to the customer and open the hood and be like, there'd be lights and angels singing. And this doc, it's funny, he was in this last week, so I saw his name on our customer list. I was telling my new service manager the story of this guy, but he's all very stoic. And so we thought it was going to be this great, man, that is amazing. This is beautiful. He's like, cool. And so,
and it feels like it fall flat.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so but for us to know, and it's more about us knowing that we are consistently delivering those moments than the feedback that we get and the stroke or the attaboy that we might receive from a customer who's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, which is what we had fished for and hoped for. But he was like, cool. So the reminder is that you got to build it into your process and to know that you're doing it. Celebrate knowing that you went above and beyond and that you did that, regardless of what kind of response you get.
But he came back.
Oh,
so that's
God.
the response.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? I mean,
yeah, that which is the eventual point
yeah.
of building a lifetime customer.
All right, I have to spin it because we don't always know how people express joy. And if he's already a stoic guy, him saying cool might have been the equivalent of
the angel scene.
Yeah, right. I don't know. I always think about how do we all express the joy? I'm sorry. I sidebarked. It's so good because
as we think about it, like how do we apply it and what kind of feedback are we looking for from that? And it's just like, if you keep doing this and you get no response from anyone, over time it fades. Mm-hmm. And so if the team doesn't get the stroke and the affirmation of some kind, repeat customers, attaboy, excitement from a customer, fun day, a highlight of the day, it will fade. And so you've got to find ways to build that up and to say, hey, he didn't respond. Man, way to go, Kevin. I saw you do that thing. And so as the leader, we have to remember that if we think that we have told our team enough, we're probably halfway there on praising and affirming the team. And so I might say, gosh, no, I know I've told my new service manager that I'm really pleased with him, but I've probably not done that enough to just say, Mike, way to go. This is really going great. I'm really happy with your leadership and what you're doing.
Mike, if you're listening,
way to go.
Way to
Kevin,
go.
You killed it. Way to go.
Well, the other practical part about it is from I'm going to say this may not be the right term, but from a selfish perspective of doing that as a business owner or one of your teammates, you have no idea what that customer said to others outside your presence. And there's the other part about that is it just reflects who you are as a brand and how you present yourself to the community as a whole. And sometimes you're right. If you're seeing that, you're not seeing that land time and time again, there may be the need to continue to remember that, but that's pretty darn important. So Russ, you're talking about moving this to your team and the team mindset. How did you do that practically? So what I mean by that is, I believe I understand that the way auto shops run is that you have processes and procedures and you have guidelines on how long something should take. It's no different in our world when we do like tax returns and stuff. We don't have a standardization, but we expect a certain thing. What kind of guidance did you give your team? How did they implement that? And I mean, like practically speaking, if something's supposed to take 30 minutes and your teammate goes an hour out of his way to do something, how do you monitor that? How do you gauge that? And then what kind of, because we're not just talking hard dollars and cents, we're talking internal soft costs. How did you give them guardrails or parameters on this?
It's not really like that each job, like to say, every job has an assigned time to it. So in our world, we pay 0.3 of an hour for an oil change. Mm-hmm. Between that and an inspection, the technician, it certainly takes them at least 45 minutes or an hour to do that well. So in that instance, they get shorted, for lack of a better term, but we find ways to make it up in other areas. But to say, I don't have a clock on anybody to say, okay, you have an hour of time for a diagnostic to figure out why this check engine light is on and to come up with a game plan for this guest about how we're going to solve it. It could very well be that they get that done and it's 40 minutes, but it might also be an hour 20. The net result in our business is we want the techs to know, the technician team that's actually doing the work, to know that we're looking for ways to help them on those times that go over, but that they have the freedom and the flexibility to do that when they need to say, no, this is the right thing to do. We can't just say this is done just because I've run out of time. It has to be done correctly. because it's going to come back, and they have to do it right, and to make sure that they take pride of ownership. So it absolutely starts with the hire and the interview, to hire the kind of people who are going to pay attention and who are going to be willing to go above and beyond, or who are going to express frustration about our industry and about their previous experiences in it, that they would say, I'm looking for something different. And when we say you have the authority to do the right thing for the customer, and they just smile and say, that's crazy. That's the first thing you tell me, because I've never heard that before at a previous employer. And then I get to celebrate that. I take it as a huge badge of honor that we have several former employees who I've terminated, who are still customers of the shop, or that we have folks that used to work for us that are still friendly. We have a technician who came and borrowed a tool last week, and he credits me by saying, the brand and the shop, by saying, I didn't realize after 20 years of being in this industry until I came here that we could be honest and profitable in the same breath.
Wow.
And I have several employees that are around in different companies who now can say that, to say, I saw how that works, and I saw that we can do that. And I just take that as a huge badge of honor, that there are people who would be former employees that would come back, or it's because of the things that they saw, and so things that I've learned along the way that we've just implemented. So I'm just thankful that we get to do stuff like that.
So again, going back to the practicality of it, if we have a listener that is like, this is great, I love this, I have a heart for this, but I don't know practically how to do it. We know there's a little bit of a training there, more of a mindset than what to do. But for example, not whenever someone hears and wants to do something, they don't have to come to you to say, hey, Mr. Boss, can I do this? And you say, yes, you can. I'm assuming that's not the case. If that's not the case, how does it really work? How do you get that done?
Again, like I said, as you're talking about somebody who's trying to implement something like this, it starts with the hiring process and just trying to get to know a prospective employee and asking them to see if that mindset is going to fit, if they're going to embrace that and decide, this is the kind of place where I want to be, where I can put my own signature on something and go above and beyond, and it's going to be recognized and rewarded. I'm not going to get beat up for taking an hour and 20 minutes on this. I'm going to get affirmed and recognized, at least for saying, I'm going to do the right thing every time. And so when we find people that are going to meet that standard and are to join our team, and then employ that and continue to do that over time, to find ways to celebrate that and to encourage that. You know, a lot of companies out there say, I want to be the Chick-fil-A of our industry, right? I think that's a fairly common thing.
Mm-hmm.
But to do that, a lot of people want to say that, but not a lot of people want to live that out, which means I'm going to invest in my people. I'm going to give them opportunities to grow. I'm not going to limit their ability to go above and beyond, and maybe even beyond me, beyond my company. So I was talking with we had our national convention last week, and I was talking with a few guys. It's a funny thing. Several of the auto tech training people, so our technical training people that are on call for the technicians in now 340 plus shops around the country, several of them have come from Idaho, and they've come from Christian Brothers Automotive shops in Idaho, oddly, and then they've moved to Houston, and now they're the folks that are on call. It's just a funny coincidence. There was a guy for a while in my shop that was our particular expert on a particular kind of vehicle, so that when somebody from another shop would call Houston and say, hey, we're struggling with this particular kind of diesel engine, they would say, we know we need to call Scott at Tulsa Hills, because he's the one who knows all about this. So it's a support network that's part of a franchise, just like a dealership, to say, hey, we have a technical expert that can backstop you beyond what you may have experienced. So
as you've developed this process as it relates to your industry, and you've talked with others, because I'm sure I'm not the only person you've ever talked to about this, have you seen an industry where it was like, this really doesn't apply, or you really can't utilize it here? Have you seen something like that?
I can't think of anyone that I've talked to or that has read that book or discussed this that says, that just doesn't apply to us. I don't know what that is, where there are ways to say, I think that if it's there, if such a thing exists, it's probably one of those things that is under threat from being replaced by AI and everything else. Because if it can be automated, it's going to be automated. Or if a robot can do it, they'll figure out a way. But in this, it's just, how can we go a little bit above and beyond? How can we listen a little closer, pay a little bit more specific attention to this person in front of us? Which, as professionals, I think that's just the secret sauce that we bring to the table.
I might also throw out there that our customers are not only, yes, they are mostly external, but we also have internal customers, i.e. our teammates. So if you don't service someone outside of the four walls, there's always someone, obviously majority of the time, there's someone you work with that it's the same kind of concept. Wouldn't you agree?
You bet. And so in our instance, it could be that we have a more junior tech, a greener tech. And in automotive tech, they kind of grade them. So they say an A tech is somebody who can diagnose anything, fix anything, figure anything out, even something maybe that they haven't seen before. And a B tech maybe has some limitations. And then a C tech would be more of a green tech that would do a lot of front end suspension, brakes, fluid, the basic kind of stuff. And so in our instance, what we have at our shop right now, which is something that I get to celebrate often, is when they run into a problem, they can kind of pull the rope, for lack of a better term. So in Toyota Kaizen manufacturing terms, they have it's kind of like a rope on a bus that you pull the little rope to ring the bell to say, hey, I want to get off. They can ring the bell and stop the line in a Toyota factory and say, there's a problem, we need to stop. And so what happens when one of my guys runs into something that they need help with, they can kind of pull the rope and gather the rest of the team to come around. And it's not something that they take as a point of, well, I don't know, so I should be ashamed of this. Mm-hmm. It's no, I want to do this right. And I'm going to learn from this. So let's pull everybody in and have them come and take a look at this. And I was talking with my service manager last week too about the fact we don't submit very many tickets to Houston asking for help from the folks down there that are for that purpose. It's because we have a great process already in place and a team that trusts each other and is willing to ask for help. And they know that is a part of our brand, part of our identity. Say, like anything, anybody who's really good at what they do, there's a pride of authorship and a pride of them doing it. And part of that could lead into arrogance. And I don't need to ask for help. I'm too good for this. But that we would have a balance of that to make sure that we have people who are confident in what they're doing, but they're also willing to ask as needed.
So, Mays, I know your mind is going crazy. You're one of our, for lack of a better term, procedure people. What are you taking away from this? I can imagine some of our teammates going, I don't know how to do this. And that same thing happening in our industry. What's going through your mind?
Yeah, really, I'm kind of going back to the time, how do you, when you're allowing your technicians to say, something really should take 45 minutes, but I'm going to allow them to take an hour and 20. Time is such a commodity for everybody, the customer and your technician. How do you communicate especially if the customer's sitting right there in the lobby? how do you communicate to them like, hey, we're really doing this once over, or we're really combing through everything? That's really kind of what stuck to me. Like, how are you communicating that? And then do you just leave them sitting in the lobby and it's like, hey, read this magazine again?
Yeah, it's a good question. And it's a different situation with somebody waiting in the lobby than if we've shuttled them home or
Sure.
Oftentimes, if somebody's waiting and we can tell they're getting anxious, we'll remind them and offer, hey, would it help you if we ran you home for a little bit so we can have some time with this to take the edge off? Or offer to run them over to Lowe's or Target or soon to be IKEA in Tulsa. But to make sure that we're communicating, we try to do that with every vehicle. In automotive, our ability to look over the vehicle is our bread and butter. We have to have the ability to not just take care of what the customer has requested and be an order taker. We have to talk about the maintenance and the things that are coming. Say, hey, this isn't a problem yet, but we see it, that it might be down the road. But the balance and the difference of what I think that we really focus on at our shop is telling customers, I may give you an estimate that's more than what, like I'm going to surprise you and scare you maybe even a little bit with so much. But then the next breath is going to be, let's talk about this in priority order. To say this thing is on a scale of 1 to 10 is a 2. And we've seen plenty of vehicles roll out of here that are worse than this with more movement or more leak or whatever, come back in 6 months and they've been okay. So we want to make sure that we communicate that and alleviate that concern. And so it's about meeting them where they are. And what we talk about a lot is thinking about the metaphorical counter. We have a counter for now at our shop. When we remodel, they're going to remove it because they recognize that the counter feels like a barrier. And so we want to remove that. But we've talked about that a lot to say we want to come around the counter and think about this from the shoes of the customer and say, I don't want to do on your vehicle what I want to do. I want to do what's best for you. So the first question we want to ask is, what's your plan for this vehicle to get us out of our point of view and into the customer's point of view? Because if they say, as soon as I get my tax refund, I want to get rid of this hunk of junk, that's one thing. It's another thing when they say, I want my 10-year-old to inherit this and drive it through high school. Okay, different conversation. We want to talk long-term for them. But if they say they're going to get rid of it, we may note the fluid maintenance that's due, but we'll say, look, if you're going to get rid of this in a few months, it's not going to benefit you to do this. So please don't.
Okay. Sometimes I got to give credit where credit's due. And we talk about this being a divine intervention, divine appointments, and all this kind of stuff. Divine things that happen that I think inspire conversation on this podcast, like the Hyatt experience I had this week. When you're talking about the counter, I specifically, when I was talking to Esteban about my room, there was another representative gentleman. I kind of interpreted him to be somewhat of a manager of the front area there. And I noticed him walk around his desk to talk to the customer. And that just really struck me as he cares. There was a barrier there, but he came around it very naturally just to go, hey, what can I do for you or take care of you? And so the fact that you're talking about that, I think is just really, really cool, really neat.
And it's a reminder because even if you're in a business that doesn't have a quote counter, think about it in terms of how do we come around whatever barrier that there may be between provider and guest customer, and to come around that barrier and to say, I want to really understand in your shoes what's best. So
that has no practicality in our industry, I don't think. Okay, Russ, I want to start kind of wrapping this up a little bit and kind of get to an issue that is at the heart and soul of most every entrepreneur, and that is ROI, return on investment. Do you track that at all with this thought process, or is it a completely intangible result?
Great question. I think I got to be the client customer for the University of Tulsa in a consulting class this last fall. And I floated the idea that I think that they could do a master's thesis on this idea that if I focused at my business on raising our average ticket, which is the bread and butter. So just like at a restaurant, they focus on how much each guest spends per table, per person, whatever. We talk about average repair order or ARO, average ticket, whatever. If I said to my team, I want to raise our average ticket by 20%, I think they could do that. But I think that the bad outcome, those byproduct of that, would be our customer satisfaction score would go down. However, if we focus solely on the customer experience and as measured by the customer satisfaction score, we're still going to raise our average ticket because we're slowing down, we're explaining better, we're educating the customer better. So they're going to say yes more often, therefore spend more. And so, it's going to be because we focused on the customer experience better that we have a better outcome. That's where I see the dichotomy of that question, that where you could write a master's thesis on the focus on the ticket or the focus on the customer experience. I just think it's fascinating. But when you explain it, and I explain it like that, everybody says, well, of course, that makes good sense. So I just think it's funny, but that's really been our focus.
Well, I think there's two ways to go about that as well. There's an intentional way of, I'm going to do this or be nice or whatever so that we can do this so that we can make more money, versus the concept, it's just the heart thing and we're going to take care of people going forward. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. You have to recognize and decide what is the measurement, what is the thing that you're looking to do, an outcome you want to deliver.
All right. So last question in this area then, Russ. Which of these do you think is most impacted by hospitality? Is it referrals, retention, or team morale?
I see those posts on Facebook where people say, you can only choose one of these bands from 1994. And I ignore those because I think, thank goodness that I don't have to choose that. And the same is true here. I don't have to choose. We have more customer satisfaction, happier teams, and more referrals that come because customers are like, this really is unique. This was a unique experience that I had. And so I want to tell more people about it. So I think all three of those things, but I mean, it's kind of a misnomer almost to say, oh, which one do you choose? Nah, all of those things are the outcome. And that's the beautiful thing about it, is to say, we're going to have multiple benefits that are good for the business, that are good for the employees, that are good for the customers. All of those things come from applying this.
It's our podcast, Russ. You have to play by our rules. No, that's really, really, really good stuff. Okay, so wrapping up here, let's say we have a business owner, and I'm kind of got two parts to it. Let's say we got a business owner that's listening, really likes what he's hearing and wants to take a step forward. What should they do? Alternatively, let's say you have an employee of some organization. Maybe they're in the accounting and tax industry and they're part of a firm and they're like, yeah, this really speaks to me. I think we should do this kind of stuff. How would they move forward? So business owner versus employee, how do they move forward with just getting this to catch momentum and implement?
I would say, I think it would be helpful to read Will's book, Will Guidara, Unreasonable Hospitality. You can download it on Audible. It's super popular. It's available everywhere. And then to look for ways. One of the challenges that we did is, after we read this book as a team, I thought, we're talking about these fancy restaurants. So instead of doing a Christmas party that year, we sent a team out and said, I want one of the people up front to pair with somebody in the back. And then for them and their spouse, instead of us going to some chain restaurant and gathering 30 or 40 people at a big table and me worrying about that one person who's not engaged or whatever, for them to go out in groups of 4 and to say, I want you to go to some of the finest restaurants around town. I want you to get a bottle of wine. I want you to get an appetizer and get a dessert. But the challenge is, I want you to go as a student. And at these fine, fancy restaurants, look for the processes they're putting in place to deliver their excellence. To say, so somebody, what they could do, read the book for certain, but decide that you're going to be a student of other people's process and start paying attention and listening. When you see that at Taste of Texas in Houston, there's somebody standing quietly aside from and this is a fancy steakhouse, well known for amazing service, and they have a salad bar that's really legendary. So there's somebody standing aside that after I go through the line and I leave the spoon haphazardly wherever, they have somebody coming behind and resetting that at 45 degrees just to make sure that the next person comes in and all of them are lined up and it looks fresh and ready to go. So to be a student of process, if you go in and you appreciate Quick Trip or you appreciate whatever it may be, whatever kind of business, to say, what is it that they're doing intentionally from a process perspective, consistently to deliver their brand of excellence?
Mic drop.
Yes.
Nice. Russ, I love the way you just kind of brought that home and just mentioned again that hospitality is more than just service, that we have to listen for those opportunities. We have to go above and beyond and just create magic. So thank you for really sharing all that with us. There's so much there that we need to digest and think through and try to figure out how to implement in each of our industries and as well as the industries of our listeners. So what's a good way for people to connect with you?
I mean, I'm available on LinkedIn and Facebook and whatever, but frankly, if for local people, I've been a part of a job search ministry for a long time, and I love to be able to catch people because I believe God wrote that story on my life, and it's a debt that I have to continue to repay that I'll never get to deliver. And so I want to be available when somebody loses their job or is looking to make a change and to say, I don't want to be a mechanic, but I should probably talk to that guy at Christian Brothers. I want to be that guy to say, let me come alongside because I've been through that ringer and I've looked into that tunnel and seen a light, and I know for a fact it's not a train. So I just want to help somebody. And so I'm easy to find at Christian Brothers Tulsa Hills, Christian Brothers Automotive, or Facebook or whatever.
I wanted to give you the opportunity to just kind of pimp your business just a little bit there and tell us where everybody, especially anybody listening local, where you are and how they can just come by and see you if they really wanted to. So again, Russ, thanks for your information, the expertise, the heart really there is what we really appreciate most about you. And as we wrap up, we have a tradition with our guests. That tradition is
Rapid fire. Yes.
So we've started doing things a little bit differently, Russ. We usually have been doing like 5 or 6, quick questions for our guests, but we've started to kind of implement would you rather versus rapid fire. And we want to do a would you rather auto service edition with you, if that's okay.
Come on.
All right.
Go Sara Mays.
All right. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Would you rather be stuck in a waiting room with a screaming toddler or a customer who says, I Googled it and you're wrong?
Definitely the latter. I Googled it and you're wrong. I'd love to unpack that. I don't think that,
That's
because
awesome.
I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm humble enough, I hope, to be able to be called out and be willing to be told that I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So,
Ooh,
yeah.
Insightful. Good. Okay. Would you rather wow one customer and so hard that they tell everyone, or quietly improve the experience for 100 customers in small, invisible ways?
Again, I'm glad I don't have to choose one of those two. But I think that what we're doing is, I think that if we focused on taking a swing at improving small 100 different ways, at least one of those is going to be the home run that delivers
the wow
that has somebody selling. So I would say the 100. I want 100
Russ
shots.
He ought to run for office or something.
Right?
I love the way you move that around. All right.
Thanks.
Okay. Would you rather customers tell you exactly what they want every time, or you become freakishly good at noticing the unspoken thing they care about?
Oh, freakishly good at noticing, because it's just not going to happen that they're going to come in. We get calls all the time where people say, hey, can you help me rebuild this transmission? We used to really want to refer to a shop out in Broken Arrow and just push them off. Now it's like, let's get it here and look at it and see what's really going on, because they don't know that they need it, if it needs to really be rebuilt, or if it needs to be replaced, or if it's just a wire or switch, something very small that doesn't even need the transmission replaced. Let's put hands on it and see.
Nice. Okay. All right. Would you rather have a mascot for your shop, or a bell that the team rings every time they create a wow moment?
Oh, the wow moment. I want to celebrate internally and for it to be a thing. I saw a dealership last week that posted something about a customer satisfaction score award. And it's not one that I think about when I think of customer satisfaction. And so I realized I want to start doing that, where each month I find something that we can post to say, look at this great experience this customer had at our shop, or look what we've done with our net promoter score in April, to celebrate each time. So, and I'd also, to answer the follow-up question, would I rather have a paragraph to answer a question or 2 words?
A paragraph.
A paragraph. Hey, we love it. We love it. All right, last one. Would you rather be limited to using 3 emojis total for the rest of your life, or have your customers choose which emojis represent your brand?
Ooh, I think it'd be fun to have them choose that, because, and frankly, my kids make fun of me because I don't use emojis, because I need more words. I need to tell.
No.
Do you use a GIF or a meme?
No.
Okay.
I use memes a lot.
Okay.
Memes I like.
Okay.
But emojis and no.
Okay. All right. Good deal.
Mays, great job. You want to bring us home?
Yes. Okay. Well, I got to get back down here. So thank you so much, Russ, for being on. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Truly
Russ,
amazing.
I knew it would be great. And you did not disappoint.
No, you did not. But if you have any comments or questions, or if you have ideas that you would like for Jeff, Christy, and I to discuss, please email us at podcast@cckcpa.com. And we'd love to hear from you. And then also just remember to comment, like, and share it with a friend. We really want to bring we have an amazing podcast, and we just want to share it with the world. Right?
Hey, why lie, right? It is amazing.
It is one of my greatest strengths that I love to brag about. Just the irony of that.
Right?
Bragging about humility. You see what I said?
Yeah.
Yes.
It takes Sarah a little bit of time, Russ. That's all.
It's a dumb joke. That's fine.
Well, I was in a groove. All right.
Yeah.
So we wanted to say also a huge thanks to CCK for giving us this platform to have this podcast and to share it with others. Thank you to KP so much, Christy. You are an amazing guide for us. Thanks to my wonderful husband, Robert, for the intro and outro music. Thanks to Clarence, our wonderful sage. I think that's what Jeff calls you.
He's the big guy now. He's the big guy now.
Yes, from Tulsa Internet Marketing Services. And then thank you to Emily and Dasha. They just do things so much week in and week out that y'all don't even see. We actually probably should have them as guests on the podcast.
I've had that conversation with Emily before, and she's like, no way. But
yeah,
I agree with you.
So Okay, well, here's your call to action, Emily and Dasha. We'd love to have you on. And always join us next time as these two CPAs get together and you get to find out who's on the mic.
The information provided on this podcast is for general informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute accounting, tax, legal, or financial advice. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, laws and regulations change and individual circumstances vary. Always consult with a qualified CPA or professional advisor before making any financial or business decisions. The views expressed by the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of any organizations they are affiliated with. Listening to this podcast does not create a client-accountant relationship. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge and agree to those terms.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Two CPAs and the Mic. If you found today's episode helpful, please subscribe, share, and leave us a review. Have questions or ideas for a topic? Reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Email us at podcast@cckcpa.com.